This is Donald J. Trump, the 45th and 47th President of the United States. Early morning on Sunday, April 13th, Trump visited the press mid-flight on Air Force One.
You know, it's like 2 in the morning and we're doing this. You people requested. I'm always available, unlike Biden. Think Biden would do an interview at 2 in the morning? He wouldn't do one at 9 in the morning.
Fact check true. In the first few months of his second term, Trump has taken literally thousands of questions from the press, despite the fact that they treat him so poorly.
Hello, Kai, come on over here. You know the fake news? This is the fake news.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How are you guys? Good morning.
He says it right to their faces. What a savage.
He don't care. He don't care.
But it's not just the president. It's also various members of his administration. Now, I know it's only been a couple months, but let's do the top 15 most savage moments of the Trump White House so far. So coming in at number 15 is the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, versus CNN's Jake Tapper.
So how long do you anticipate this tariff chaos is going to be going on? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days?
Well, first of all, Jake, thank you for having me. I think it's really important to realize that last Wednesday was when the president announced this new American order, the new American economic plan. We're now 2 days in, right? You've got 2 days of data. Everyone, especially on your side, on the left, is freaking out.
I'm not on the left.
But at the end of the day, listen, this whole concept, all right, Jake, thank you. This whole concept is about rebuilding.
I can't believe he said that with a straight face. Just own it, Jake. You're not fooling anyone.
I'm not on the left.
All right, Jake, thank you.
And speaking of CNN, here's number 14 on the list.
And this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility. Okay, who else? Yes, please.
Number 13 on the list involves a confrontation between Caitlin Collins and the VA Secretary, Doug Collins, no relation, where Collins was asked about Signalgate.
You served in the Navy and the Air Force. How would you have felt if information like this was talked about in an unclassified group chat, if a Navy fighter pilot, is in the air?
Well, I think the one thing, Caitlin, it's good to be with you tonight. I think the president and those involved in the chat, which I was not involved in the chat, have explained that. I trust the president's opinion on this. I trust what's been going on. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. My opinion is that my job is to take care of veterans in this country as they come out of service, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
We heard from some of your former colleagues up on the Hill today, some Republicans who said they don't like how the administration is handling this, that they're kind of tying themselves in knots by saying it wasn't classified information. Do you believe that a mistake was made here, though, to have this conversation, to add a reporter, and to have it on an unsupported, classified group setting?
Caitlin, as I've just told you, I've just answered the question. I wasn't a part of it. And, I'm not going to speculate more than what the president's already talked about and those who've been involved have talked about. But we'd love to talk about the veterans.
But Caitlin Collins doesn't actually care. She just wanted to keep asking about Signalgate. And Doug Collins wasn't having it.
Yeah, and I do have questions about the veterans, but given what we saw with the group chat and how this was used, you are a member of the cabinet. You obviously know these other members, several of them who were in there. Is this typical for the cabinet to have conversations over Signal? Is this something that you use?
Well, Caitlin, since you undoubtedly do not want to talk about the VA, I have a question as VA Secretary. As Cabinet, I want to ask you, because I've been curious about this, because my job is to take care of veterans, and I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida, where you just had a $5 million defamation suit taking offense at a veteran who was trying to help people.
Doug Collins is referring to U.S. Navy veteran Zachary Young, who sued CNN over a hit piece that aired in November 2021 that painted Young as a black marketeer smuggler, illegally profiting from charging exorbitant fees to desperate people trying to flee Afghanistan.
That person offering those evacuations, Zachary Young, he wrote, "Availability is extremely limited and demand is high." Jake, he goes on to say, that's how economics works, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Alex Marquardt, thanks so much for that important report.
I have a question for you, Caitlin. Is that employee still employed? Are you really concerned about veterans? So if we don't want to talk about veterans now, you want to talk about everything else, I'd like to hear from CNN as the veteran cabinet secretary, why CNN seems to have a problem with veterans.
Well, Mr. Secretary, respectfully, my question was about whether or not you as a member of the cabinet use this. And respectfully, I'm conducting the investigation. And I do have a lot of questions for you on Veterans Affairs.
She's conducting an investigation, guys. But listen to her reasoning as to why she won't comment on the actions of a fellow CNN employee.
I've asked and answered your question. Why don't you answer mine? Is this person still employed who said they were going to nail one of my veterans? Who you had to do a $5 million award from a jury because of defamation, and then you settled the case. Answer my question.
Respectfully, sir, I'm asking the questions here, and I have no involvement in what you're referencing there.
So Caitlin Collins demands that he answer all of her questions about the Signal chat because he's part of Trump's cabinet. But at the same time, she claims that she had no involvement in the Zachary Young piece and doesn't need to answer questions about CNN, even though she works at the network. In other words, rules for thee, but not for CNN. Number 12 on the list is when Stephen Miller turned the tables on CNN's Jake Tapper.
And I want to really drill down on this, Jake, because it's so important. There's 2 million employees in the federal government. Overwhelmingly, the career federal service in this country is far left wing.
I don't know that to be a fact.
Well, I'll give you a great example. We looked at USAID as an example.
That's
98% of the workforce either donated to Kamala Harris or another left-wing candidate, just as an example.
Okay, but let me just an entire workforce is having a
whoa. Did you just say that saying someone voted for Kamala Harris is demonizing them?
No,
so according
your suggestion is that there's a bias.
No, but you used the word demonizing. You just said that I'm demonizing somebody by saying they voted for Kamala Harris.
Let's get back on track.
But I am on track.
Number 11 on the countdown is when Trump was answering questions on Air Force One and was surprised to learn which outlet a reporter was from.
The Vice President suggested that if the Supreme Court rules in a way that you don't like, they can just enforce it by themselves. Do you agree with that?
I don't know even what you're talking about. Neither do you. Who are you with?
HuffPost, sir.
Who?
HuffPost.
Oh, no wonder. I thought they died. Are they still around? I haven't read them in years. I thought they died.
Number 10 was when a reporter asked Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth about the nomination of Dan Kane to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Why did you select an underqualified retired lieutenant general to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
I'm gonna choose to reject your unqualified question. Who's next?
Imagine being so stupid to think that a highly decorated 3-star general is underqualified for anything. That reporter 100% deserved that response from Hegseth. And of course, you know the type of questions that he was probably asking during the Biden administration. What kind of ice cream did you order, Mr. President?
Chocolate chip. Oh, yeah. Chocolate chip.
Number 9 on our countdown is border czar Tom Homan versus a Haitian.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro. I'm not going back to Haiti.
Well, he's wrong. He's going back to Haiti. I tell him that.
Number 8 on our countdown is when Vice President J.D. Vance attended the Munich Security Conference and gave a blistering speech criticizing European leaders and their approach to democracy and free speech.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. When we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership.
So instead of going to Germany and kissing Europe's ass, Joe Biden style, Vance gave an excellent speech calling out these supposed democratic countries. One moment that stuck out was when he called out Germany for their Orwellian free speech policies.
This very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action.
They are literally arresting people in Europe for posting memes. But journalists like Face the Nation's Margaret Brennan are more concerned about making the Trump administration look like Nazi sympathizers. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio is there to push back, which is number 7 on the list.
He also met with the leader of a far-right party known as the AfD, which, as you know, is under investigation and monitoring by German intelligence because of extremism. What did all of this accomplish other than irritating our allies?
Why would our allies or anybody be irritated by free speech and by someone giving their opinion? We are, after all, democracies. The Munich Security Conference is largely a conference of democracies. They don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think, actually makes his point.
Exactly. The left only likes free speech that it agrees with. But then Margaret Brennan tried to imply that J.D. Vance is promoting extremism by pulling this historically illiterate claim out of her ass.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that.
I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
I can't believe that she still has a job after that. Oh wait, no I can. Anyway, let's watch Margaret Brennan's most excellent rebuttal.
Mr. Secretary, I'm told that we are out of time. A lot to get through with you. We appreciate you making time today.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a minute.
Number 6 on the list is when AP reporter Josh Boak went up against White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
If we could just step back for a second. When President Trump last addressed the BRT when he was on the campaign trail, his big push was on tax cuts. He's going there today as he's proposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs.
Not true.
And I'm curious
He's not doing
why
that.
he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, and the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts, as you know.
But then, for some reason, Josh Boak tried to make it personal and immediately regretted it.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
they
it.
don't get charged on foreign companies, they get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press.
Number 5 on the list is a now classic confrontation between Vice President Vance and Margaret Brennan.
Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
Let me ask this question,
But
Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
The point of the question, of course, was to make the Trump administration look like monsters. But VP J.D. Vance is very skilled at this.
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended by the president. Refugee screening takes 18 to 24 months to go through. They are heavily vetted.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember.
And that's correct. According to the Department of Justice, an Afghan national motivated by ISIS was arrested for allegedly conspiring to commit a violent attack on Election Day.
He was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't.
And that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
I don't really care, Margaret.
Number 4 in the countdown occurred during a White House working meeting with governors, where he called out the governor of Maine, Janet Mills.
I signed an executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. Many Democrats are fighting me on that. I hope you continue because you'll never win another race. The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way, that's good. But I understand Maine, is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens. We're going to protect.
But then, weeks later, Governor Mills would double down and claim that she didn't have to listen to Trump because he was making stuff up.
I read the Constitution. The Constitution says that the president, the chief executive, shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. It doesn't allow him to make laws out of whole cloth by tweet or Instagram post or press release or executive order.
But Trump is, in fact, taking care that laws be faithfully executed. In this case, Title IX, a federal law that Governor Mills is not only ignoring, but violating.
And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Number 3 on the countdown was during a White House event for the LA Dodgers. As presidents are wont to do, Trump acknowledged several members of the audience, including members of Congress.
We have also Representatives Kevin Kiley, Congressman Kevin Kiley, Young Kim, thank you, congratulations, great job. Jay Obernolte, Jay, thanks Jay.
But then when it was time to acknowledge the senators from California, Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla, Trump decided not to.
We have a couple of senators here I just don't particularly like them, so I won't introduce. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team I didn't think it was that big a deal, actually. Washington.
Number 2 on the countdown occurred during a visit to the White House by the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, 95%? It's incredible.
Okay. As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually. Do you have any questions, please? Go. Let's not start with CNN because they're just so wrong.
So the big news surrounding the event was regarding the fate of Kilmar Abrigo Garcia, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. Both an immigration court and an appellate immigration court ruled that Garcia was a member of MS-13 and was illegally in the country. However, due to a paperwork error, he was mistakenly sent back to his home country. And since he's allegedly a gang member, he was sent to Sikhat prison in El Salvador. And the press has been obsessed with this case, trying to paint him as an innocent father from Maryland. And paperwork or not, he was going to be sent back eventually. So when Trump finally called on Caitlin Collins, she asked if President Bukele was going to send Garcia back since the Supreme Court ruled that the United States should facilitate his return.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN.
Do you plan to ask President
Low-rated.
to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly
Which one is it?
deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States. Right?
It's only
how can I return him to the United States? Like, could I smuggle him into the United States, or whether, of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous.
This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. The foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
And that should have sufficiently answered her questions on the matter. But Caitlin Collins is a glutton for punishment.
You said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago.
How long do we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. They always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them.
And now, the #1 most savage moment on the list. On April 9th, as Trump was signing executive orders in the Oval Office, the camera panned over to reveal a visibly uncomfortable Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. Whitmer was reportedly expecting a private meeting with the president, but instead, Team Trump threw Big Gretch into the lion's den, knowing that it would put her in a vulnerable position, because as a powerful Democrat, she's supposed to be a leader of the resistance, not meeting with the bad orange man.
We're honored to have Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, great state of Michigan, and she's really done an excellent job and a very good person.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing. But then days later, the New York Times posted this image by photographer Eric Lee, showing Whitmer attempting to hide her face from the media. The optics of meeting with Trump was one thing, but Whitmer's reaction made it 50 times worse. Does this look like someone who can stand up to Putin or Xi or anyone? This now iconic photo effectively puts an end to any presidential aspirations that Big Gretch may have had. So great job, Team Trump. And on that note, that's the end of the countdown. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. If there is a next time.